Hey team, how's it going? Welcome to a new video. Welcome to Combat Ready HQ, where we are looking at British Army's bold move to revolutionise initial training for recruits. So we'll go into detail in a minute watching this video, but what they've done is British Army Phase 1 training is now the Soldier Academy. It is now in place, it has changed over. So we'll find out a little bit more about this, but before we get into it, you can obviously always check out the original video in the description. Head over to Forces News if you could like, share and subscribe. I hugely appreciate it. And check out our merch, Combat Ready HQ, and our coffee over on our website. I was an instructor at ATR Purbright back in 2015 to 2017. I was a section commander there when I was a bombardier in 7th Parachute Regiment Raw Horse Artillery. So I have been through training as a recruit. I went through the Army Foundation College in 2006, and I've also been through training as an instructor. And it's a lot. I think it was around 12 weeks, if I remember rightly, when I was an instructor, and then I did 49 weeks through Harrogate. Harrogate I highly recommend to anyone who's 16 looking to join the army. You cover so much more sort of soldiering. You go all the way up to platoon attacks and even dive into a little bit into company attacks. You do a bit of education there as well, and you just get so much more time to practice your skills and drills. So you become really good at section attacks, weapon handling, drill, all of it, because you cover it over a year. So you get longer to learn it before you do trade training and then enter phase 3, which is the regular army as a soldier. With this, we'll see what they've changed. I know they've changed things with iPads and the weekends, but let's get into it. As always, comment below with what your thoughts are, what you want to see next.
Soldier training has been given a shake-up. British Army recruits scattered across every UK training centre now follow the same 13-week programme under the Soldier Academy syllabus, and it's been designed to match the way modern recruits learn.
So I think one of the key aspects of the new common military syllabus is to make it much more progressive. So we talk about a sort of crawl, walk, run philosophy to make sure that we're not losing too many recruits at the beginning of the process. So obviously everyone's aware of the recruiting challenge that Defence, but the Army is also facing at the moment. So we don't want to lose any recruits unnecessarily. So this is really about a gradual progression as they then adjust to being in the military.
So my question is how are they doing this gradual progression? Because it was pretty gradual when I first joined. Well, when I was an instructor, sorry. And even when I joined in Harrogate, it was a lot harder when I joined. I remember getting thrashed right on day one, arrived on a Sunday, Monday night, the whole platoon got absolutely thrashed. But you don't have much time to be too gradual. I remember it was jam-packed when I was a section commander to try and cram everything in 12 weeks. Like the stuff you've got to learn, drill, weapon handling, obviously shooting. So you've got CBRN, you've got battlefield casualties, navigation, which is a big one. They do not do enough of that in phase 1 training. There's a few other bits that you obviously have to cover, physical training as well. And then you've got all the exercises that you need to get in as well. It was already gradual in week 1 when I was an instructor. They no longer had to carry even their own clothes. So when you get your kit issue, it gets put in the back of the van and drives about 50 metres to the block. Like that's how gradual it was back then, because they couldn't load carry too early. You did no drill before they did a medical, so sometimes a medical wasn't until the Wednesday and they arrived on a Sunday, so they couldn't do no drill at all, couldn't teach them to march at all, because they were worried about injuries. Obviously with my previous video on the shouting, even back then they were always trying to calm down the shouting and swearing. So how gradual can they make it?
Instructors have been trained to understand how to nurture and mentor, as opposed to just train. Understand what it is to be a recruit, not from when they were recruits, but what a recruit is expecting now, today in the 21st century.
All the recruits get issued iPads now. On those iPads they give us different feedback on what's called the My Training app. So daily and weekly they can record a reflective diary, how they're feeling, how much sleep they're having, how fatigued they are, and the section commanders can individually see this and actually give feedback. They may not often feel confident enough to come forward and tell people, and that's a personal one-to-one thing just between the corporal and that recruit, which they can help them with, which is really beneficial.
With the iPads, you know, it's with the world we're in now. Even back when I was an instructor, they were getting rid of PAMs. All the paper PAMs had gone and it had gone online. Every time you were going to teach a skill at arms lesson or something, you had to then go and print off the required section that you needed for that. So they've been trying to get rid of paper for ages. You've always had a best book in the army. When I joined, you had to write your own best books. Everything you learned in a day, you rewrote on A4 bit of paper and then you put it into a folder. When I was a section commander, they had a best book that already had all the information in. They then just had to fill in the gaps, and then they had a weekly diary as well where they could write in how they were feeling, how they feel the week went, and then at the end of each week we had to read it and sign it and give our own little review back, and they read it. So I sort of get that with the iPads, but you don't want to go too far with it. I think the sleep and fatigue is brilliant because this more goes back to the PTIs and the physical training and the section commander and the platoon sergeant and company knowing how your blokes are. It's the fatiguing bit and the sleep bits. It shouldn't really be to do how they're coping with training. It's more like, are they physically ready? Okay, let's look. He's feeling quite tired, so he does need a bit of a break. Maybe when we go on exercise, I won't put him straight onto this position. I'll hold him back. This guy's feeling good. He could sort of be a commander. So sort of gill it, but you don't want to go too soft depending on what the questions are in there and what they need to fill out. Remember, at the end of the day, we are soldiers, but if you can understand people's sleep, their fatigue and their mentality, then yes, you can sort of adapt training to how their needs are, and then you can write, my section's this, they're all fatigued, what can we do to obviously bring up their energy? It's something maybe the rest of the army should actually do, to understand alongside soldier condition and review, the RFTs, how is people sleep, what's their fatigueness like, how are they eating, all athletes do it.
The element that I found most difficult was their ranges, ACMT, with their shooting, their standing unsupported position. Yes, it was really tough for me, but as time goes on, they taught me how to handle the rifle, get the right position, and then get the right target and then shoot it. Right now, if you give me a rifle and you ask me to shoot whatever target, I will get it for you.
She's confident.
Came out of it, and then I can say I'm a good soldier now. Yes.
I struggled with a bit of timekeeping, organisational skills. On Civvy Street, you don't really have much timings to keep to, etc. CBRN, chemical, biological, radio, nuclear training. It was a struggle for me.
You have to put on the mask and then shout, gas, gas, gas.
The training teams did a really good job of getting you prepared for those.
While standards haven't changed, there's now more flexibility for those looking to transfer between cap badges and roles after the training, and closer attention is paid to those falling behind.
Yeah, transferring's becoming a big thing, and it was quite massive when I was there. Recruits always wanted to transfer and it was quite hard. Now it's a lot more common, they're making it easier. You might as well, because people nowadays do want to transfer in between.
Before the 13 weeks is starting, we've even now created something called a soldier development course that will take individuals that we've identified during the assessment centre process of the recruitment that may struggle with physical development, may have some behavioural issues or even some functional skills that probably don't quite meet the threshold that we know they need to be at to succeed in the 13 weeks. We'll invest in that individual to bring them up to the start standard, and then they'll go through the 13-week syllabus. We're able to take them out of training, invest them in a bit more, whether it be physical development or even some of the military aspects, and then allow them then to come out, dock back into training maybe a couple of weeks later, so that they actually are then able to still meet the standard, but really at the pace of which they're able to learn.
The structure.
So basically what it sounds like here, the soldier development course actually sort of come in when I was there. I think it come in 2016, if I remember rightly. And it is good. Now, back in the day, people will be like, well, we didn't have that because we didn't need it. Sadly, today, we do need a soldier development course just to get recruits into phase 1 training. That is just the way the generation and the country is. That is the state of the generation and country. No longer can they just get through the assessment centre. Also with recruitment issues as well, back when recruitment was high and you were getting a lot more people getting A grades, A, B to C, you were sort of, the great people who got lower grades just didn't make it in, but it didn't matter because you had higher recruitment. Now we're struggling with numbers. The ones that don't actually meet the grade, sorry to say it, you don't meet the grade, so you have to go and do a soldier development course to then meet the grade into thingy, which is then going to boost recruitment numbers, because otherwise you would just bin them off and tell them to come back, or say, look, you can't join the army. Now instead of saying, look, you can't join the army, or binning them off, you're saying go and do the SDC. We then get you up to standard to join phase 1. It's just another way of basically increasing recruitment numbers, because they are struggling to get the initial lot in. So that is with that. And then bringing them out of training and putting them back in, just, we used to call it getting back trooped. So if you didn't meet the required standard, you basically got put into another troop that was further behind in training. So if say you're on week 7 and you're struggling, you might get put back to a troop platoon that's on week 3. Well, it sounds like now, so that they can pass out at the same time as the other recruits that they've joined with, they're taking them out, sending them to another sort of squadron company to be retrained a little bit better, more in depth, to then go back in. I would like to know a little bit more about this, because then that would depend on what they're actually missing out. Because say if it's quite a tough week that your troop's doing, and you get pulled out and you get sent to another troop, and to sort of have more one-to-one training, you're missing out that bonding, you're missing out that training, and you're not complete the actual syllabus as it is. I think it depends, are they getting pulled out and getting put back into the same troop, or are they getting pulled out and getting put into another troop? So you're sort of getting back trooped, you're going away doing remedial training, and then you're getting put in. I'd like to know. I think if they're going back into the same troop, I think it's unfair and they shouldn't be doing that. If they're going into a troop that's a little bit behind, so they can sort of slot back in, then I would say that makes sense. Instead of just sort of taking them out of one troop, putting them back into another troop, you take them out, develop them, and then put them back into another troop.
Of this training is regularly updated, the army watching threats around the world and working out how its people can measure up. Tom Sable's Forces News.
Thanks for watching.
So yeah, that's it there. I think the gradual training, it's already been quite gradual. I don't know how much more gradual you can make it and how much more softer you can actually make it. At the end of the day, like, people need to understand, when you join in a pretty army, it's tough, it's fast paced, it's high pressured. That is the job role. And if you don't want to be in a tough, physically challenging, high pressure job, don't join the army. Don't join the army just to say you're in the army. Join because you want the adrenaline rush, you want to work in high pressure situations, you don't care about being told what to do, right? And you want to be running around like a headless chicken sometimes, because that's what the army's like. The problem we have nowadays is a bit of a lazy culture. They can't be arsed being fast paced and being thrown in at deep end, and they just cry and break, in my personal opinion. I think what they're trying to do, yes, it does seem a little bit better. I think the iPads, yeah, it's a pretty decent move. At the end of the day, the world's moving to technology anyway, and they're trying to save on paper, because the amount of paper that got wasted makes no difference. Sleep fatigue, I think it's a brilliant idea. Do you need a daily diary to really let out your emotions? Most probably not all the time, but you know, understanding people's physical ability, their sleep, their eating patterns as athletes, tactical athletes, yeah, it could actually give you a heads up on how your section is working and what you need to do and what you need to change, or whether you can push them a little bit harder. I just think the gradual, like, how much more softer and gradual can you really make phase 1 training? Right, over 13 weeks, there's so much to be crammed in. Just like, you've got to go there with this willingness to learn, willingness to be put under pressure, and willingness to run around like a headless chicken. It's just, I think nowadays, like, to get numbers in, because they're lower numbers, they're trying to sell that the British Army's not hard. Like, come and join the army. Like, we're friendly, we're soft. It's really, the British Army's not easy. Phase 1 training is not impossible. It's not that hard, but it's a physically challenging, tough job, depending on what trade you're going in. But for the majority of people, like, you knew, like, I remember when I was joining phase 1, I was scared. I was like, this is going to be hard. Like, and that's how it should be. Not totally scared, but you should be like, yeah, I know this is going to be hard, instead of, oh, it's too hard now, we're not getting the numbers, let's make it easy to get people in. Because later on down the line, sorry, you're just going to have an issue. I think the Soldier Academy is a good idea. What they're doing, some of it I don't agree with. I did speak to someone, they get more weekends off, which obviously she was happy about. So, and I would be if I was in phase 1, because you get every weekend off after week 5. But like I said, it's already a lot of learning, a lot of information you're getting thrown at. So working that Saturday morning every now and then helps increase the time you get to teach them. The iPads, she said, is brilliant because they now get to do their own learning in their own time, which you had the best book before. But nowadays we're a technology society, so most probably that is better for the younger generation, that they can work off an iPad because they love technology and they can learn in their own time. So I think that is a good move. Just how much more gradual can it be? How much more softer can it be before we're basically just a school? Like, you've got just students coming in who are like age 11 and you have to like muddly coddle them and make them feel better and give them a cuddle if they're upset. Like, if you're thinking about joining the army, it's tough. Training is shit sometimes. You get cold, wet, you have lack of sleep, you are working 6 till 10 o'clock at night. Just be prepared for that. Right, but we don't want to teach them that. We want this generation, everything has to be easy and given to everyone nowadays. That's what it is. And that's what we're getting. So 50-50 with the Soldier Academy could be a really good idea, could work really well, but obviously there's things in there I just don't agree with. I'd love to know a little bit more about it, and if I can find more information, I'll do a video on it. Let us know what your thoughts are.